What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over some locations you might want to land at if you want to get easy wins in Season 3. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you would like some more. Comment down below where your favorite place to land has been recently, and if you guys would like to use my code in the shop when getting anything. It is Evolved Jake, just like my channel name is, and is underneath the webcam at all times. So, in Zero Build, with how the game currently plays out, shock rocks are incredibly important. When you have shock rocks, you have easy engage on enemy players. You're going to have an advantage in resetting fights versus people who don't have it. And then using the shock rocks in a fight, you're also going to have a movement advantage on enemies. So in fights where you have shock rocks and the enemy doesn't, that's going to be something that's a huge advantage for you. And in fights where the enemy has them and you don't, that is going to be a huge disadvantage for you. And so you want to have these shock rocks in your inventory as often as possible. And you can find these from just looting. So like opening chests, floor loot, the dream sprite can drop them when it levels up, but you can also find them at certain locations around the map. And the guaranteed ways to get these shock rocks is going to be going to these locations where they are guaranteed to spawn. When you're relying on looting or when you're relying on the dream sprite, it's just completely up to RNG and it's completely up to chance. But if you land at one of these locations where they're guaranteed, you're going to give yourself one of the best movement items every single game. And so the main location you can actually find these shock rocks is going to be around the 0 point in the middle of the map. And oftentimes you could land where you wanted and then rotate to the 0 point and then probably pick some up during like the mid game. But being around here in the mid game can be a bit scuffed because you know, an enemy might just catch timing on you. But also there's a chance that people just take them. And as time has gone on and people have gotten more and more adjusted to the shock rocks and they've become more and more important, I feel like people are starting to land here more often. And so in some matches I play, by the time I get to the middle of the map, if I land somewhere else, they're just all completely taken, or a majority of them are taken to the point where I can only get like 2 or 3 shock rocks, which obviously is better than not having any. But you want to be able to carry a full stack and then obviously have shock rocks on your character as well. That way they're ready to go when a fight breaks out. So landing at the 0 point is probably going to be something that you might want to consider doing more frequently. Just landing on the 0 point straight up. I don't really prefer landing right at it because there isn't much loot here. And then fights can also play out really weird because you're not going to get much loot. You're not going to get much ammo. You're not really going to get much shield. And then other players are landing here, grabbing the rocks, jumping away, or jumping into the 0 point and flying around. It's just like an absolute mess. And so if I was going to try to land at the 0 point, I wouldn't want to land directly on the 0 point itself. I would rather land at one of 2 spots next to the 0 point. And those 2 locations are going to be, one, the motel that is right next to the 0 point has an okay amount of loot, and you can loot it really quickly and then make your way to the 0 point and then get your shock rocks. And then from there, you can rift and then go find players to eliminate to get more loot. It's unlikely that looting this motel is going to get you everything you need for that match, but it's going to be a solid amount of loot probably. That's a decent start, much better than what you would have gotten landing directly on the 0 point. And then you can, you know, get your shock rocks and play the game out. Another location in this area that I think could be really good if you want to just like land somewhere with a bit of loot and then quickly make your way to the 0 point is going to be that big rock that's in the desert, because there's some chests here, there's some floor loot, but there's also a launch pad. So you could land on this rock, get your loot, and then quickly launch pad over to where the 0 point is, get your shock rocks. And then once again, this probably isn't going to be enough loot for you just to play the game straight up, but it's a good starter and a much more consistent starter than just trying to land on some random loot at the 0 point and hope that you don't just waste a bunch of time in some of the more like chaotic random fights that can exist. So those 2 locations I think would be best if you do want to go for the 0 point right away. But one of my favorite places to land recently has actually been outside Sanctuary. So on the outskirts of Sanctuary, there's a spot that has a guaranteed slurp truck, a guaranteed rare chest, and then there's also some other potential chest spawns and potential floor loot spawns. So you can, you know, land here, get your quick loot, get the slurp truck for immediately full shield and save any shield you find. And then you can make your way over to the Sanctuary's greenhouse, because the Sanctuary's greenhouse for some reason actually has 4 guaranteed shock rocks in the bottom. And so this allows you to land at a more traditional POI that isn't just the middle of the map or isn't like an area where people are going to constantly be rifting. You have a solid amount of loot here, and then you also have guaranteed shock rocks. And this will allow you to consume one of the rocks and then carry the 3 others, and so you have half a stack ready to go. If you find any other shock rocks from looting this area, that's great. You're going to be making your way towards a full stack, and you may not even need to go to the 0 point, but this is also going to help you in the event that the 0 point is, you know, looted. Like I said, some games it's completely looted, some games it's mostly looted, and there's not very many left. But if you have this guaranteed 4 to start, and then by the time you make your way to the 0 point, even if it is looted, you only need to, you know, find a few more to guarantee yourself a full stack. So I think landing at the motel or landing at the rock or landing at the 0 point, things can be a bit dicey, but I think this new the sanctuary location with the guaranteed shock rocks is actually a really good landing spot if you are someone who prefers, you know, a more traditional POI landing spot. There's a solid amount of loot here. You have the shock rocks, you have a slurp truck, there's vending machines inside the sanctuary. There is a key room here, so if you find any key, you can go down there and open it. And the sprite chests rarely have anything of like great value, you know, but there's also a rare chest that's guaranteed in the key room, which, you know, maybe has a solid amount of loot or something that you need. It's not gonna be a solid amount of loot, but it might be something that you need because it has the double utility spawn. And then another thing that's really nice about Sanctuary is going to be that this has a pretty decent chance of being a blue POI. The blue POIs have a higher chance of spawning the rare chests. And when you have more rare chests, you're going to come away with more utility items and higher rarity loot typically. So not every location can be a blue POI, it seems, on this map. And so New Sanctuary is one of them that can be. And since not every POI seems to have that ability, it'll be that way pretty frequently. Like last season, Ripped Tides had a really good chance of being a blue POI. I feel like Sanctuary is kind of the same way here. So you have that higher rarity loot pretty often in addition to guaranteed shock rocks. And one final thing about Sanctuary that's really nice is going to be the vortex beacon that will allow you to fly out of here. Now, this doesn't seem as good as it was in the past. It doesn't seem like it sends you as high, but it still is, you know, rotation that allows you to leave this POI a bit faster and get more towards the middle of the map if you are looking for action. And if storm is a concern of yours for whatever reason, it really isn't going to be, because that vortex beacon will allow you to travel out of the POI really quickly. So I just think Sanctuary is an incredible landing location right now. It's not the most, you know, contested or sought after POI, but it has guaranteed shock rocks, a solid amount of loot, rotation out of there, and it's just overall a good POI. So I feel like a lot of people haven't really considered Sanctuary much this season, because it doesn't have that underground vault area anymore. But I think the shock rocks at the greenhouse more than make up for the removal of that little underground vault area that we had last season, and make this probably the best it's been in all of Chapter 7. I think that probably is a hot take that a lot of people won't agree with, because people really like the underground vault areas. But these shock rocks are a very influential mobility item for how the game plays. Being able to guarantee them at your landing spot is something that's going to help you win a lot more consistently this season. And this isn't as kind of coin flippy of a landing spot as some of those other locations might be. So if you have been struggling to decide where to land or struggling to get shock rocks, I think Sanctuary is going to be one of the better spots in the game. But that is going to be it for this video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I also do have Inside the Mine videos. I posted the past 2 I made. One was at Motel and one was at Sanctuary, if you want to see full gameplay with commentary from these spots. But give it a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you would like to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.